You're about to start one of the most interesting and satisfying sections of your training as a pilot. Means you're entering into a world that's completely different.
And there they go, those magnificent men and their flying machines.
And it's something that is quite divorced from much of the experience you've had so far.
Well, there it is, folks, the Aviator.
So you want to know who I am? Well, I believe I'm Bob Tate, and I've always been Bob Tate. I'm not counting and not considering changing that at all at any time in the future. So yeah, I'm a happy 80-year-old, doing what I love and enjoying what I do. My earliest memory of aviation, so I was 8 years old or so. I can still show you actually if we could go to Innisfail. In the main street of Innisfail, just outside the National Bank, I was standing on the footpath, and I looked up and an old DC-3 flew over on its way to the Innisfail aerodrome. And it's funny how I still remember that as though something happened inside my head, because I watched it, I saw it, and I found myself watching it, and somehow a voice inside me said, I'm going to do that one day.
I realised pretty quickly that he was super passionate about it, and you could tell by the way people gathered around him that that he had an awful lot of respect. I mean, we used to fly out to country air shows all over the place. One of his great friends is the Coxes, who had skydiving displays, and so we were often together as groups flying around doing little air shows all over the place, and he was very involved in organising an awful lot of air shows. So that tended, for some time, I mean, we did quite a lot of that. As the school got bigger, I think that became a lesser priority. And he was doing an awful lot more flying as well, flying training.
Jan's been flying for quite some time, although in recent years he hasn't flown a lot. But you learned to fly in the 60s.
Well, I guess I'm pretty biased because I've known him for 45 years and I've seen the extra time he's put into other people. His greatest achievement probably was induction into the Aviation Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Australian Aviation Hall of Fame proudly inducts Aviator, flight instructor and author Robert Stewart Charles Bob Tate.
The Order of Australia medal is very important to him, but I do think the Aviation Hall of Fame was the most exciting.
It was quite amazing, because seeing the presentation seeing who'd come before was quite daunting, but in his own inevitable style, he just turned it into a comedy act and started cracking jokes everywhere.
I was walking into a chemist shop to pick up a script when my phone rang, and Steve was on the other end telling me that I'd been accepted to be inducted into the Australian Aviation Hall of Fame. I found myself standing there saying, who the hell is this? I thoroughly enjoy the feedback from people who confirm that they've found some use and some help in some of the things that I've offered them. So I get a great buzz out of that.
One time we got off an aeroplane and the pilot recognised Bob. When he walked out, just recognised him, and he just said, oh, look, I just want to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be flying. He was the captain. I wouldn't be flying right now.
I was watching this guy jump into a pit special and do some amazing aerobatics and come in and land and swagger sort of over to the Aero Club, and I sort of thought, who's that? And of course, you know, whoever was doing the voice overs was, you know, saying it was Bob Tate. And then a few years later, of course, because I owned a skydiving business, I decided that I needed to learn to fly, and did my flight training at Archerfield. I was one of these students that just hung off every word that he said. A lot of the exam questions that I got right were not from what was in the syllabus, but literally from the stories that he'd told.
In the early days, he was very charismatic. He was just passionate and driven, and he always wanted to fly. And then when he did start to fly, and then he realised he could teach, that was just more of a motivating factor, and he just kept going. And you could tell he loved every second of it, because whether he was flying in a plane or teaching somebody, doing a briefing with someone, or sitting at the bar after a hard day's flying, it was always the same smile and sparkle in his eyes. You know, he was just loved every second of it. Have you ever considered doing an RAOS license? We first discussed it, and seeing that was a vector we could take, we started talking with Paul and a few others, and we found that, you know, the transition was quite simple, and he met all the criteria to keep going.
The idea of going to RAOs, I find it a bit attractive actually, because I like the atmosphere. I like the way people get on so well with each other, and the actual training syllabus is very practical and sensible.
We're going to start the process of converting your general aviation qualifications to RAOS qualifications. Yep. So the first thing we have to do is sign up for the temporary membership, yep, and that'll cover you for the appropriate insurances for the flight. Just on this one. Yep.
This one?
There we go, and then we just fill that form out online.
We need to actually understand and verify the experience that a pilot may have in converting. So that requires them to provide us logbook entries, licenses, ratings, and it's a great thing for the assessing CFI or instructor to go through that to actually build a picture of the converting candidate. And you know, Bob, for example, is well known in the industry, but we still need to go through that process to provide validated licenses and references. On the medical side of things, the great thing about recreational aviation is that it's a self-declared medical standard, so we don't have to verify those things. But if there are any medical issues that the applicant is aware of, then we need to be told about those as well.
All right. Okay.
So we're over here, Somerset.
What's bridge? Right.
Even though Bob's got a lot of experience, especially with teaching aviation theory and stuff, it's always good to make sure that they've got it in a practical sense. We've got to check everything as part of the process, that make sure that they're safe and can continue flying.
You can do it with your eyes closed.
Oh, well, no, not necessarily. It doesn't hurt to have them open, no matter what aeroplane you're flying.
So the conversion process is important. While it is only 5 hours, it's important that you maximise the diversity of what's done in that 5 hours or more. It's only a minimum of 5 hours. If it takes 10 hours, that's great. I mean, remember, they're coming back to this for fun in most cases, so treat the opportunity to actually go out and, you know, brush up on basic dead reckoning skills and navigation. Look at the limitations of upset recovery and so on in these aircraft, and actually just get back and to the elements, the key elements, to make sure the pilot's safe.
Standard checks, we check our maintenance release and documentation.
We're looking for exhaust leaks. Each exhaust is held together on springs to the muffler.
Yeah.
You know, Foxbat, make sure they're just location pins with nothing else in there.
Yeah.
If they're too tight, you could snap that pin and the bolt could actually come loose. So converting Bob Tate from general aviation to recreational aviation was quite an achievement. It was, he's just a natural born pilot. From all of the aerobatic training in his early days to now, he just jumped into the light sport aircraft and flew it like he'd been flying it every day of his life. So it wasn't a very difficult situation. He has flown a lot of lighter weight aircraft, but not to the extent of the recreational being below 600 kilos maximum takeoff weight.
Okay, you happy?
Yeah, wind's all good, everything's set.
So the basic conversion is 5 hours plus a test. However, to be able to carry passengers, you've got to have 2 hours in command. So usually about 6 hours is the conversion completed with the 2 hours in command so you can carry passengers. It entails doing some general handling in the aircraft, slow speed flights, stalls, and then just getting used to flying, taking off and landing the light sport aircraft, so a few sessions of circuits.
Okay, we'll have a look at just a normal stall. We've got 3,500. We'll make sure we're covered by 3,000.
Okay.
We've got plenty of open fields below us, no built-up areas. There's nothing loose in the cockpit. The engine temperatures and pressures are in the green, and we've just done the lookouts.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Yep.
As it comes back, you're expecting to see it stall around 35 knots.
Okay, 40 knots coming up.
The attitude's increasing, the airspeed's decreasing. We're starting to get sloppy controls.
Off it, right
There
here.
it goes.
That's a stall.
Yep.
Okay. Get my sun out of my eyes.
That's a good idea.
So what about with flap?
Yep, you can do that now. We're in the flap range, power's back. I'll get the flap for you.
Okay. 30 knots.
25 knots, there it
Here
goes.
she goes, yep, okay.
Pretty docile, really.
Yeah.
Hey, flap's coming up. Beautiful. Very nice.
Probably the most obvious trend in terms of current changes to aviation, or as far as my involvement is concerned, is in recent years I've got to know more about the RA Oz family, if you like, or the group of people who operate as RA Oz pilots, and I knew nothing about that much before. That's been an interesting journey to explore another avenue, another section of aviation that I really didn't know a lot about it until recently.
Another beautiful afternoon, Bob.
Yeah, good one, isn't it? Considering they're all worried about storms for a while. Redcliffe traffic, Fox 5260 is turning. Base runway 07 for a full stop. Out here?
Yeah, just use this one here, and then at the end I can just walk across back to the hangar then.
So I've just sent Bob solo. He flies the aircraft like he's been flying it his whole life.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have been part of his licence conversion from general aviation to recreational aviation. And for me, it's just really special to have been part of his story and to be the last instructor who probably will ever send Bob Tate solo. That's pretty special.
Recreational Aviation Australia, it's had a few name changes throughout the years. Started out basically as a revolt in the late 70s, early 80s, where ultralight pilots wanted to basically be able to fly and not come under the wrath of the regulator. And so sub-regulations or orders were created to allow flight of ultralight aircraft, and the original AUF, Australian Ultralight Federation, was born, and that later morphed into the Recreational Aviation Australia.
They're your ignitions. So the key switch.
Sorry.
Yeah, the first connect is your battery.
Okay, that's the battery. All right.
Yep. I started the initial transfer of his qualifications across, but some of my other instructors just wanted to have Bob Tate's name in their logbook, so they all put their hands up to do some of the training. So it was we all shared it amongst us and finished off the final product and signed him off.
Beautiful circuit, Bob.
Nice conditions, eh?
Ah, beautiful conditions too, yeah. Not only can you teach theory, but you can also control the weather as well. Okay, so let's do an engine failure in circuit here now. So bring our power all the way back to idle.
Okay. Leave the flap off, we'll stay in nice and close.
Yep.
Okay, trouble checks. The switches, there's only two things that can go wrong. Switches and fuel.
Yep.
Not going to start.
Not going to start until we get an engine failure. Feels like we could hang up here forever, doesn't it?
Yeah. Might even go for one flap, I think.
Yep. Okay.
Plenty of height.
Yep. Regular traffic, Fox 5260, conducting glide approach, runway 25, touch and go, red cliff.
FD.
Oh, beautiful example of side slip. Excellent.
Oh, I had a little bit of power on that.
Yeah, you did. But you got that, look at that. All right, let's go. I'll get your flap.
Probably one of the most interesting and exciting ideas is that the reduced cost of RAOs now means that a lot of pilots find it quite attractive to, especially since CASA are allowed, a certain amount of carryover in experience. So it means that people who can start their flying in RAOs and then migrate into the GA world, even through to commercial and airlines eventually. And that's happening on increasingly, I think, lately, and people are taking advantage of that.
Okay, Bob, we're going to do your converting pilot exam today for RAOs.
Yep.
We need to do that before we can do the flight test for your certificate.
Yep.
Requires an 80% pass mark, so you get the answer sheet and the converting exam itself.
Okay.
It should take you about 30 minutes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you failed already.
Okay.
You've got to put your name at the top of the page.
Oh, I thought you might have known who I was. Okay. Oh,
You put B. And
push. I didn't read that. That's my reading.
92%.
Right, yeah. That makes a pass. Still, I can't imagine. Don't tell me to put some numbers in the wrong box.
Oh, there you go. Well done.
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, I thought it was a fairly fair exam. Actually, that as you might have expected, the questions I consistently got wrong were questions about the specific to the operation of RAA. So I learned a lot from that. That's good. And the other errors there were simply stupid, careless errors of misreading the question like everybody does. So I hope all those students out there feel better now. I only did it for you, you know. Make you feel better.
I've converted a lot of pilots and some have got 20, 30,000 hours. And I guess if you go back in history, when popular mechanics first started showing rag and tube aircraft and pilots that were busy at the front end of what were then big jets, I guess, back in the heyday of commercial and airline aviation, they wanted some simple fun. They wanted to get some fun back into their flying. And of course, they came over with scratch-built plans and backyards and paddocks in their mates' places and went out and started flying these contraptions. And unfortunately, there were a lot of accidents. The reality of aerodynamics is that low inertia aircraft behave differently. And of course, the engine systems weren't to the same standard or testing. That's changed a lot now. We've got very robust testing procedures and certification procedures for aircraft. But back in the day, there were a lot of, and those inertial differences are probably the primary differences. Systems inertial differences and the limitations that allow us to fly in terms of airspace and so on. They're the things that we have to ensure as an organisation that converting pilots are familiar with, that they understand the handling differences of the aircraft, and we take their promises and all those good skills that they've got already, and we just modify them and put another layer on them for flying recreational aircraft and keep it fun.
We've got 60 litres on board, so it's about to do a check flight on Bob for his Recreational Pilot Certificate conversion. Well, it's always varying with the different types of pilots and the backgrounds they've come from. We're looking for them, how they control the aircraft with the lack of inertia because it's so light, under the maximum 600 kilo takeoff weight, and this one's actually 525 limited. So we just look at the manoeuvrability and the differences between what they would normally expect with having that little bit of extra inertia in a general aviation aircraft to the light sport aircraft. Bob, all I'm going to look at is you're going to take me out to the training area over Bribie Island. We'll look at a bit of slow speed flight, some stalls. We'll have a look at a forced landing glide approach.
Yep.
And then just come back here for a few circuits, nothing that you shouldn't be able to handle.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Just off unaccelerated flight, so
Yep.
power comes back. And we increase the angle of attack as we slow down. 50 knots. At 40 knots. At 35 knots. And there's stall, recover, lower the nose and apply the power.
Beautifully done.
Okay.
Any Delta X-ray here is on a short final runway 30. Caboolture.
Short final, okay.
Got
I
him.
got him.
Yep.
I'll go for one, a flap at this stage. I've got plenty of.
Okay. Caboolture traffic, Fox 5260 base, runway 30, Caboolture.
left.
Oh, that's going to be fun for you, right into the sun.
Yeah, well. Not for the faint-hearted. Got one on the runway by the looks.
Yep. And the glider's on the ground. Everyone else is behind us.
Slip off any excess height.
Rightio, we can go. Touch and
Thumbs
go.
up.
Yep. Beautifully done. We'll go back to Redcliffe.
Okay. Redcliffe traffic, Foxbat 5260 is on base runway 25, touching a Redcliffe.
Okay, practice.
Okay. Right, I can't see anything, so I'm just going to try to ditch it over here. Maintain 50 knots. Get the sun out of my eyes if possible.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's good. We'll go around.
Looks like we should be coming home pretty muddy, I think.
Okay, we'll go for a flapless full stop.
Flapless, okay.
Redcliffe traffic, Foxbat 5260 is turning base runway 25, full stop, Redcliffe.
Well,
Well, congratulations and welcome to RAOZ. That was well done. Very good job.
thank you very much.
We'll go upstairs, we'll complete the paperwork and have a bit of a debrief.
Excellent, thank you. I enjoyed that.
We're filling out the converting pilot initial issue paperwork. That'll be the signature, just the next one down. The flight review process for the conversion was pretty simple. I just said, Bob, okay, I'd like to see a steep turn, for instance, and he just ran all the normal checks, got to an appropriate height, did the steep turn, and it was, you know, he could have basically done my conversion.
I think it's our duty, actually, as an organisation, and I sat down in Dubbo in 2014 and we added up 457 men, women years of experience in the room, and I just said my job in my tenure with RAOZ is to capture that. Our stalwarts and our experience that we collect in terms of our existing base and the ones that come to us through conversion, that's where our knowledge is. And Bob's a great example. His pearls of wisdom come out all the time, and he just has a really good way of explaining things simply because he understands them fully.
Bob is someone that I want to aspire to be as a flying instructor. I've now got age on my side and a lot of lived experience, and I want to be able to, do my instructor rating hopefully this year, and be the type of instructor that Bob was for me and for thousands of other students.
Well, I think he'll always be known for a long, long time to come. He'll always be known as somebody who cares. All he wants to do is help them get on the way.
I know the Australian Aviation Hall of Fame and the OEM awards are great accolades in his life, but I still believe to him, a student walking through his door in his office telling him he's passed a performance exam or an aeronautics exam is just as much of a pleasure for him than anything like that. At the end, that's what makes me most proud.
All I could really ever ask for is that somebody out there will say they're glad they met me. You know, I don't know, I don't want to be remembered as some icon or anything like that, but if I've had an influence in somebody's life, and I'm sure I have, and I can say that with great gratitude, that I've frequently had people who've said, you know, oh, thank you for what you've done. I would not have my career if it wasn't for you. if people remember me, not me as some kind of person who's special, but remember me as someone who guided them down a path that they've achieved what they wanted. I used to often say to my instructors, you're not the top of the tree, you're in the middle of the ladder, you're reaching down to grab someone's hand and say, come on up, help them past. A lot of them will go past you. A lot of them will achieve what you've never achieved. And that's, you should be proud of that, because that's your job. And so all you can do is exploit your opportunity to make them reach the best they can be. And that's what it should be all about.